Thank you for the continued interest in the process redesign tool I'm presenting to get your overhead costs and processes under control and hopefully a little bit leaner. For those who have not yet had the chance to see the intro presentation, I would recommend going back to the intros, which are also available as a little movie on my LinkedIn page, before going into the tutorials of this tool. We will now start the presentation on the tool settings and the first orientation. As said before, the tool consists of two file types, the one being the planning and follow-up system, and another is the measure reporting flat file. We will now have a look at the setup and the presentations, in the preparations, and give you a first orientation on the components, the data field, the master data concept, and the consolidation functionality. As already mentioned in the intro, the whole process of setting up a process redesign starts with the process analysis as is before defining potentials, and from the potentials a measure plan. This portion of the system redesign or process redesign is set up in the planning and follow-up system. Once this has been performed and measures have been approved and decided upon, the different measures are noted and documented in the measure report flat files. This includes a roadmap, a budget, and a follow-up on measure KPIs. To bring this measure report flat file information together into a consolidated view, the planning and follow-up system has the possibility to consolidate and to produce consolidated reports on all individual measures and also on aggregated levels. Setup and preparations. For the tool to correctly work, several base information and tool settings are required to adjust before starting the reporting process. Let's start with tool setting. The tool setting requires a flat file folder path. This is the folder where you will store all the measure flat files that need to be uploaded into the consolidation system. The consolidation system needs to know where these files are stored, and therefore you will be required to put the name and the folder path into this cell. The system will then take this information and upload the information that is in the different measure flat files automatically into the system for further analysis. On the left side, another set of base input are required for the calculations to run smoothly. Namely, you will need to have an average hourly rate to compare costs of an old process to costs of a new process, and thereof calculate the net present value of the implementation of that new measure. Second is the starting point. The tool has the functionality of setting up a Gantt chart. So if you want for a certain starting point, see how the process looks like, you will be required to put in a starting point for a whole process. The internal rate of return is also needed for the net present value calculation, just like the process cycles per year, which is the number of cycles you run the process per year in order to calculate the net present value correctly, but also to correctly calculate the process costs. Last but not least, formatting plays a major role. Let's start with the index start and the index prefixes. The tool as a standalone can digest about 30 process steps and 20 measures. Should you, for very large main process that can be divided in more than 30 processes and more than 20 measures, need to split that into two tools, you will have to perfectly identify or uniquely identify the different measures, and the different process steps need to have an index prefix in order not to have doublets in your calculation or in your display. The number of horizontal pages will play a role later on in the setup of swim lanes, depending on how long or how big you want your printout to be. You can insert a number of horizontal pages, and the tool will then recalculate your swimline sizes as well as the size of other graphic elements. Color coding and orientation as such. Within the tool you have different color codes. Some of those sheets are colored orange. Those are the ones with master data. All hints have gray lashes. Analysis and graphs are coded blue, and input sheets are in magenta. For most of the input tables, you also have an indicator of whether you need to actually input data into a field or whether this is calculated. That is indicated by either the orange background or the gray background. For an illustration, we're now in the tool. As you can see, you have a process list here, and on top of the process list you have the markings, whether this is a calculated field or whether this is an input field. On the other side, as described before, you also have the lashes down here from the sheets, and they receive the color coding as well. Master data. Master data are an essential part of the tool. It helps you to avoid mistakes and to do double and triple entries. Master data will be reused in different tables and provide you with drop-down functionality. So once you have set up, for example, your process phases, you will find the same phases in all relevant tables, and don't need to type that in anymore. You can just click on the drop-down lists functionality, and your job is done already. The master data are available on the master data sheet, and consist of little tables. You will see which of these tables are mandatory, which should not be changed, and which are optional. You can just change the content of the master data by overwriting. So if you don't want to have group controlling here and you want to have sales, you just change that, and wherever the table is taken as a data feed, the options you will get will not change. You can also add additional options or data options below. The data field will, or the table will automatically enlarge and also incorporate the new data that has been provided in the drop-down lists and at the spaces where it's used to do calculations. Foreign exchange rates. Often we have measures that relate to other entities. Sometimes these entities are outside of our own currency area, and this has been also reflected in the tool. So as part of the master data concept, you can have the whole calculation in local currency or in group currency, and therefore you need to, of course, provide the different exchange rates and the ISO codes for the different currencies. It is rather easy. If you want to add a new currency, you would just add that right of the table. The table itself will enlarge automatically. You will need also to provide the date and the month for which the exchange rate, so the conversion rate, is valid. And you will also need in the measure flat file to make the currency available. Calculation is then done automatically, and you don't need to worry any further. Basic calculation concept is that the exchange rates can only fluctuate or vary from months over months. They are calculated always with the conversion rate of that very month where the cash flow occurred, and will not average and will not change with accumulation. Again, for illustration, we're now in the tool. You can see there is a lash for the sheet FX conversion. This is where the master data for the foreign exchange conversion is noted. And you have here a whole set of different currencies and a whole set of current dates. Please make sure that the number of dates corresponds also to the number you have in the measure flat files. Otherwise, the tool will be looking for a date in the consolidation logic that is not available and then produce errors. There is one very important currency, that is OTH. OTH is others. This is what I use always for KPIs that cannot be translated or converted in currency. So if you have, for example, a head count, or you have minutes or hours, you would take other as the currency conversion rate, and that will always be 1, because minutes, no matter which country, will not fluctuate in value. So is the same for heads and a lot of other examples. Consolidation functionality. As mentioned before, the planning and consolidation tool is capable of sucking or uploading all the data in the measure flat files into a joint data model and do calculations for the whole group or for the whole process that may include several measure flat files. To do that, you need to save that under the folder path you have named on the overview page, and press the Update All button. The program will then be running for maybe a minute or two, do the calculation, and with that being completed, all your calculations and all your graphs and all your tables will be updated and are ready for consuming, are ready for review. There is no more manual work attached to putting together an update of the consolidation logic. So thank you very much for your interest. That was the first tutorial on the setup. We will now go into the second tutorial, which deals with the analysis and the steps you need to perform there. Please stay tuned. There is more interesting information to come. I hope that was helpful for you. Talk to you later.